Ciao, dosto. Welcome to a special video with a very special gentleman in the house. We have Dhananjay, our in-house Juventino, and the person, the striker, the player that we are going to be speaking about today is the one and only Fabio Quagliarella. TJ, welcome. And I heard that you're very excited to do this recording.
Hi AJ, thanks for having me. You couldn't have said it better. Fabio is one of those very underappreciated talents, that have been thrown up by this fantastic league that we call Serie A. He's a guy who's actually won plaudits not just at club levels, but he's also won it for the Nacional, where he had to work really hard to hit those heights, especially if you remember in Lippi's team. And
Of course.
seeing a talent like that, he's been a journeyman, AJ, like we already know. Having
Yes.
started his career in Torino, to then hitting the heights as Ascoli, Sampdoria, eventually going back home to Naples,
Yep. Yep.
and then really making that step up to Juve, winning titles with Juve. He's a guy who's the reason why I say underappreciated is because nobody has ever earmarked a journey, that has seen a start from, somewhat oblivion to then coming into the spotlight. AJ, I don't know how many people kind of know his journey to then having the controversy of being stopped, followed by his ACL at Juve. That ACL, AJ, set him back a couple of years, but he stayed fighting for his spot in a title-winning Juve team. So not enough is spoken about, Quagliarella, the temperament, Quagliarella, the man. Everything that we know him for is his ability to create a golazzo out of nothing.
Yep.
And I think, in today's episode, I think we'll get a little bit of time to just kind of deep dive into what his career trajectory has been, what his struggles have been, both
Yep.
mentally and on the field. It's been a journey marked with everything, really.
Absolutely.
Absolute cinema
Absolutely.
is what he'd create with the goals, but somewhat there is cinema in, the story as well. So happy to dive right into it. Let's go for it.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we are doing what we are doing. Calcio Chacha is here to speak about the stories in Italian football, to give flowers to clubs, to players, to managers, and to different eras in where Italian football has stood out. And Quagliarella is definitely a character who, we are lucky that we saw him play live, and he's part of our generation of strikers. And for me, he is synonymous with that Sampdoria shirt, where he spent majority of his career, in the blue calciati, the famous Sampdoria blue shirt with the red and white stripes. So Golazzos you mentioned, let's talk about the man, right? You mentioned he was part of the Torino youth academy setup. From there he moved to Ascoli, helped them to get promoted from Serie B to Serie A. That's when the whole blind auction thing happens. You remember, DJ, where Italy was probably one of the few leagues in which blind auctions used to happen. So just to give context, two clubs used to put a bid, and whichever club's bid was higher, the player was co-owned by that club. Ended up at Udinese, and had a fairly decent run at Udinese as well. But coming back, that Sampdoria spell, 2006, 2007, that's where we saw Quagliarella come to the fold. Ended up very I would say pivotal for them. Scored a lot of golazzos. What are your memories, DJ, of Fabio Quagliarella in Genoa?
AJ, to me, when Quagliarella really caught my eye was his time in Udine, and the early breakout moments in Sampdoria were at that point in time they were struggling then as they were, in recent memory under Pirlo. So it was very hard to kind of keep an eye on this striker that's scoring some exciting goals. Yeah, why he caught my eye in Udine is actually because he paired up with Toto Di
Di
Natale,
Natale.
who
Oh,
who was
yes.
just banging them in left, right, and center. It was such a prolific partnership that there were times when you were wondering who is this guy who's outshone Di Natale. That's a very big thing, right? Because Di Natale, if you remember, was on every club's radar back in the day. And suddenly, Quagliarella has emerged out of that shadow superseded him in terms of clubs coming in and saying, who's this striker? To then him eventually making the jump to Naples. So I think those early memories of Genoa, if you go back all the way to 2000 and seeing that trajectory from 2000 to 2006, it was really Quagliarella and the hard work that was going in. He wasn't ever a
Yeah.
prolific or phenomenal athlete.
Yeah.
It was really him maturing as a striker in terms of his movement. If you see his movement off the ball, it is very, very underrated, as a player. And I think that actually came to precedence in his time in Sampdoria. Was again learning the tricks of the trade, where he was coming into his own
Yeah.
with his ability to create the golazzo. But it was in Udine where he was having to find those places where he wasn't overlapping with Di Natale. And that's where the
Right.
magic really, really happened, for my money. And I think
Right.
that also is where everybody really noticed him, and that's when he was really able to take that big step up, um, to Naples, where he kind of went back home. And I
His
think those
hometown club. Yeah. His hometown
his
club.
hometown club, of course. And I think those memories of him are, till date, AJ, is it's really the cornerstone, the founding memories of a player that went on to become the man Quagliarella, you know. And I
True.
feel like, of course, that everything that followed him in Naples, eventually in Torino, a bunch of controversies and misunderstanding, all of his early years are, I think, what set him up to kind of cope with what was to come.
Yeah.
So
Fair.
so those are my memories. For me, it was Udine more than Samp.
For me, Deej, it was more of those Golazzos at Samp. I think, he really was part of 2006, 2007. That season itself was a strange season in Serie A, but the kind of goals that he scored, especially those long range bangers,
Oh
right?
my
He
God.
could literally hit it from anywhere on the pitch. And it didn't matter whether he was 40 meters away from goal, wherever. I mean, you give him,
They
you
were
see, you
howitzers,
promise,
AJ,
right?
absolute blinders,
Yeah,
absolute
yeah, yeah.
howitzers.
Yeah, I mean, he made it look so easy, right? I mean, it's so difficult to actually score from the center line, and you really have to time your shot well. Execution has to be perfect. The keeper, generally starts as favorite to save, from that particular range. But this man, he could just quickly turn and just shoot at the blink of an eye, and the ball would find the back of the net. But coming to his Napoli move, obviously well celebrated move. This was a move back to his hometown of Naples, Napoli. 18 million euro, quite a high fee that was spent on him by the then Napoli manager, Walter Mazzari. Uh, we didn't know this then. We have come to know about this recently. But I've never heard this before. A police cop. So just putting some context to where we are coming to, and DJ had mentioned it at the top of the video. So there was a cop who was stalking Quagliarella while he was at Napoli, and it really, really messed things up in his head. Obviously, we don't know sitting here what he must have gone through, but I'm sure it was very difficult. It did affect his performances on the pitch as well, which Quagliarella has later stated. But DJ, just your thoughts on this very unfortunate incident. Eventually professional footballers are human beings as well. I mean, even they go back to a family and live a life that everyone does. How do you think that Quagliarella managed to cope up with whatever happened then, and what followed eventually in his career?
AJ, like you very correctly said, right? It was like a breeding ground for misunderstanding with the Napoli faithful.
Yeah.
What happened was he was essentially just a season in Naples because of this situation. There was
Yeah.
the backstory really is that there was a gentleman by the name of Rafael Piccolo who was in the police in the cybercrime department, and Quagliarella had reached out to him for some assistance. And it is after a little bit of back and forth and having gained his trust, what he started doing was blackmailing Quagliarella and his family, kind of depicting that they were part of a couple of scams and scandals. And I think that is what led to obviously Quagliarella's mental state at the time. uh, that said, even then, he wasn't the one that actually put in a transfer request to move out of
Yeah.
Naples and move to Juve. It was really something that happened where, if I remember, it was on deadline day. If I just correct me, AJ, if I'm not mistaken, He moved from Napoli to Udine again, or did he move straight from Naples to Juve?
No, he moved straight to Juve.
Right. So I'm going to come back. So taking it from here. So AJ, that 2009 move where you were seeing glimpses of Quagliarella's ability, and what happened was he didn't really put in a transfer request in an obvious way to leave Naples. It was Juve that signed him on deadline day. It was a last minute signing because Juve actually were going for Toto Di Natale. Toto refused to leave
Mm.
Udine, and that's when they stepped in and signed Quagliarella. So it wasn't Quagliarella wanting to leave Naples in spite of what was happening, to his mental state. Of course, the move from Napoli to Juventus meant that the Napoli faithful thought he's a traitor. He maintained immense dignity, did not speak about what was going on mentally for him. It is a very, very hard situation for any player, professional, individual to be in. That said, AJ, just credit to the man relocating to Turin. He was just amongst the goals. If you remember, that was Gigi Del Neri's Juventus side. They were not the most prolifically built team. And Quagliarella was the leading light. Single-handedly, we were in the top three because of Quagliarella. Unfortunately, in that season, just leading up to the winter mercato, came down with an ACL. And that
Mm.
throughout, because of how single-handedly he was carrying the team with some beautiful goals, it just threw the team into turmoil. That's the
Mm.
season. If you remember, we finished out of the Champions League.
Yep.
Quagliarella coincidentally was also injured till the end of the season. So that is the kind of effect that he had on the team, and I think that is the journey. What happened at Juve was really accumulation of his journey throughout everywhere that he's played. Torino, Ascoli, Sampdoria, Udine, Napoli. You see that this man is all about work ethic, hard work.
Yep.
The Golazzos there was a lot of hard work behind it. He's not just a player of vision.
Yeah.
He was a man
Yeah.
who probably wasn't the fastest striker who went back to goal. So his positioning became paramount, and he used that
Correct.
so well. Rarely have I seen a player use positioning as well as he did, a striker especially. So, and of course, and then there was a change of guard in the coaching at Juve. Um, Gigi Del Neri was gone, and by that time, kind of Conte came in. Gigi Del Neri was followed by this very high prolific move. And what happened was suddenly Juve are now this title-winning team, and
Yeah.
Quagliarella is not a prolific striker who's single-handedly carrying them. There are other players also that he now has to contend with, and he has to keep kind of fighting for his place. AJ, he never gave up, and it's so beautiful. I remember so distinctly. There was a time when Conte was asked this question, where why isn't Quagliarella given this kind of opportunity? And people were suspecting injury. People were suspecting he's not good enough because of the injury. And Quagliarella, every time he had an opportunity, it's a 15-20 minute sub appearance. But short, there was a Golazzo in that time.
Right.
And when they asked him about his mindset, he said it's very simple. For me, the mindset is I have no regrets that I have limited time. It's my preparation that has to define who I am, not my opportunity. And it's the preparation that meets the opportunity that creates what I do on the pitch, which is
Mm.
so significant of an athlete who is absolutely elite in his mind. You know, and I think for me, in his journey, it is, you may call it bias, but it is his time at Juve that was very defining to his career. You know,
Fair.
he
Fair.
was suddenly a title winner. The past with Naples was behind him. In
Yeah.
spite of the misunderstanding with the Naples fan base, he showed up on the field as a Juventino, showed up for his club. There was no temperamental issue. And I think it was very, very good to see that once he moved out beyond his years at Juve, AJ, how often do you find a player like that who's aging, who's hitting his mid 30s, is top scorer in the league? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
that is just so beautiful to see a cumulative journey that started in Torino, took him through Ascoli to Sampdoria, took him to Naples, his hometown, gave him the romance of being at home, took him to arguably and without bias the biggest club in Italy, Juve, and then took him back to Sampdoria to rewrite that beautiful chapter in his life as
Yep.
top scorer in the league. he is just so deserving of that title and that mantle. You know, there is absolutely, even as a Juventino, to have seen him go, it was very sad. You know, okay, he may not have been a Roberto Baggio. You know, he may not have lived up
Of
to those
course.
heights for the national team. But to see him go, there was a little sadness, because I was like, this guy is always ready. You know, that's the
Yeah.
kind of player you have to worship. And
Yeah.
at Sampdoria, then to get opportunity where you're a starter and a mainstay, and at
Yeah.
that age to create golazzo after golazzo and be top striker in the league, hats off, AJ. Hats off.
Fair.
What a
Fair.
squad.
What's your one moment in a UA shirt that you would remember Quagliarella for?
Oh, there are too many, too many. But I have to, if I go back and it's a bit of a time warp, so you'll have to bear with me. But I remember it was either the Gigi Del Neri's first game in charge. I think we were playing Casano Sampdoria, if I'm not mistaken. It was a high-scoring 3-all game, and I don't know if Juve were down or Juve scored first. If you remember, it was the white jersey with the Italian flag running down the middle.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you remember
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that season, and
I remember that season. I remember that Casano Sampdoria season very well. Casano Pazzini.
yeah,
Let's not get there.
yeah. So it is, and there's a ball that comes into the box, and Quagliarella, flicks it with the back of his foot. Very similar, in fact, to Inter's goal earlier this
Yeah.
week. Thuram's goal, very very similar
Yeah.
goal. I think
Yeah.
that was, to me, it was, at that till that moment I was very like um, um, demotivated rather, in terms of the fact that what a deadline day signing. We wanted Di Natal, we've got Quagliarella, but to hit the ground running with all those doubters, and in that fashion, I think, very definitive. And for me as a
Yeah.
Juve fan, you don't just celebrate guys who have natural talent. You love the guys who are underdogs and who run their heart off, and who bring their work ethic to the pitch. Because they're not perceived to be talented. And I think Quagliarella is just one of those very special players in my heart, that he had the ability to do that. So it was not so much about the beauty of that goal; it was more about the attitude with which he scored it. Like, don't
Yeah.
doubt me. I'm here and I will preserve this shirt and its honor. That was the attitude, and I think from that moment on, it was just, this guy has all my respect. He has all my support. I can't wait to see how his career will play out at Juve.
Hmm. Fair, fair. And you mentioned that back heel goal, even at Sampdoria, towards the end of his career, that there is that back heel which he scored, which was very, very iconic. But just not jumping ahead completely, after Juve, he stayed in Turin, went to the other side of Torino, uh, and of course played for the Granata, played once again for the Granada. His second spell over here was not very iconic. 50 appearances, 18 goals, but he did score in the Europa League because Torino, if you remember, DJ, had made it to the Europa League under a very disastrous coach whose name I don't want to take. But nevertheless, he came back to Sampdoria to finish his chapter. There was a controversy with the Torino fans because Quagliarella did score against Napoli and refused to celebrate. And I think that it was a move that worked out best for everyone involved, because Sampdoria is where truly Fabio Quagliarella kind of felt at home, especially when it came to the end of his career. So he comes back, right? He comes back in the year 2016 to Samp, and he stays there till the end of his career. 242 appearances now in his second spell at Sampdoria with 89 goals. DJ,
And not to mention 18-19 top scorer in the league, Serie A forward of the year,
exactly,
26 goals.
exactly,
What are those numbers?
exactly,
That's madness. That's madness.
absolute,
Imagine
absolute,
18 seasons in the top league. You start your career in 2000 in Serie A. 2018, you're top scorer in the league. Just imagine.
true, true, true. And
Fabulous.
that back heel volley was nominated for the Pushkash Award, but it didn't win. But I mean,
Didn't win
that's the
it.
whole point. This is a guy who could score golazos. Whether it's those long range bangers or those curlers, or from halfway out on the pitch, or he could do these delicate finishes, those back heels and those subtle skills. But the guy, like you mentioned, was far more than that. A good second striker, very good off the ball movement, a complete package, overall. Um, your thoughts, DJ, as we close down on Quagliarella's career. Uh, what do you think his legacy would be in Sampdoria, because that's where he finished, and overall in Calcio? What do you think the what is the legacy that Quagliarella leaves behind?
AJ, for me, arguably he's a great player, but I think for many he will be remembered as the player who scored great goals.
Yeah,
If you can make that discernment, and I think, yeah, for all the hard work, Quagliarella is a player who kind of defines the Italian mentality, which is grit and grinta, and it is work ethic. Not all the Italians, we have to remember, are born artists. You know,
yeah,
a lot of the Italian mental makeup, the winning teams, it's the teams with the abilities to grind out results. And Quagliarella was one such hard worker that you'd always want on your team. Let's not forget, even for the Nacional, it is, if I remember, Donadoni's '08 Euro team and
yeah.
Lippi's 2010
Two
World
two
Cup team.
disastrous campains. Two disastrous campaigns.
Disastrous.
Wait,
But the highlight of that Lippi campaign, if you remember, was that last minute goal by Quagliarella,
yeah,
another
yeah. The
golazzo
chip,
out of
the chip
nowhere. That chip,
out of
he
nowhere.
just picked the keeper's pocket. Like, it's, again, if you remember, he just came on as a last minute sub, and to create that out of nothing, he is the player who defines and is symbolic of preparation meets opportunity. And I just hope that, as the league progresses, he's one of those guys who gets his walk of fame, in the annals of the great league. And very fond memories across all these clubs that he's played at. And I think for him and for his sake, that the ragazzi at Napoli have actually forgiven him, because it was
Yeah,
such an honest situation to be in.
yeah,
No player can be and should be faulted for that.
yeah.
And at Juve, we cherish him. We cherish his memories. Fun fact: unfortunately, I'm not wearing it tonight, but I do have a Quagliarella jersey on me.
By the
And
way, DJ, he chose to wear the number 27 after his one of his teammates in the youth academy had tragically passed away in a car accident,
yes,
and
yes,
he was wearing the number 27. So Quagliarella decided to honor him and wear
yes,
the number 27 throughout his career,
correct,
at least most of it.
correct. Correct. Very true. So he actually came in again. I don't know if my memory serves me correctly, but he started off 18 at Juve, but eventually he wanted that 27.
Yeah, yeah,
Ended up getting it. So that's the jersey number I have. I have the 27 Quagliarella. It's a beautiful yellow one in the year that Carlos Tevez was around. If you remember, Juve had this lovely yellow kit. So I will pull it out in one of our episodes. But yeah. So to me, I mean, that's how I'd like to remember him, and he's a player who deserves to, have his legacy cemented among the elite, if not the greats. So definitely, Fabio Quagliarella is love. Fabio Quagliarella is life, and another request to all the Napoli faithful, Yogesh included. Please do forgive him. It was really beyond his control.
true, true. I think that brings us to the close of this video. This was Calcio Charsha's ode to one of Italy's brightest talents in this generation. Again, like DJ mentioned, probably not blessed with the Baggio-esque talent, but hard worker, and typically like Italians do, we age. Italians age. मैं we बोल रहा हूँ. मतलब I think even DJ, you and I, touchwood, have been aging like a fine wine, but Italians generally age like a fine wine, and Quagliarella is a classic example of that. And like you mentioned, becoming the Serie A top scorer at a ripe age of what, 37, 38, is a fantastic achievement by itself. And I think this was a very humble effort by all of us here at Calcio Chacha to give him his flowers, to give him a tribute that is necessary. And we hope that his legacy remains like this for generations to come. That is it from DJ and me, Ajay. Thanks so much for watching. And if you've come till here, definitely like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Calcio Churcha. We shall be back with another special video sometime soon. Until then, it's ciao, ciao.
Fino alla fine, forza Fabio. Ciao.